Hi folks, hello Leute, and welcome back to Unthinking Aloud with me, Claire. You join me today in my friend's house, beautiful house. I'm on cat duty, so I've just been hanging out with Snooky this morning, but he's gone to bed now. So I thought I would make the most of having a really quiet, beautiful, peaceful space to make a couple of videos. And I think it's going to be two today. Connected themes. Let's see. I have a plan, but we'll see whether it goes according to plan or something else happens. Who knows? That's life living in the moment. So this last week I had an appointment with the head psychologist at the local hospital where I got my ADHD diagnosis. She's part of that team, and it was just a catch up to see how things were going post diagnosis, what's changed, what hasn't. And she's really lovely. And a few things have changed. You know, I was kind of feeling, I think, compared to my earlier scores, things have got easier, you know, although it's still very early in the journey, I said, you know, and I'm kind of feeling my way. But one of the questions she asked was whether I had any kind of feelings of sadness or regret or anger about receiving a diagnosis much later in life, and when perhaps receiving one earlier might have led to a different life path. Who knows? Might have led to more support, might have led to better outcomes, whatever they might be. Might have led to not so many lost opportunities. Who knows? Who knows? And it was an interesting question, actually. I think I kind of said in the moment, well, I'm not sure I've really thought about it so much in that framework. I've not kind of gone digging for those emotions, but in that sense. But what I do know is that having this diagnosis has given me a different understanding of perhaps some of the decisions I made in my life, or the ways I reacted to things, or and has perhaps leading to me being maybe a little kinder to myself and less kind of self-critical. And it kind of gives you, it gives you that framework with which to look at things and kind of say, okay, well, it's inevitable that was going to be difficult for you. It's completely understandable that you struggle with this kind of aspect of life, and it's always been tricky, or relationships or whatever. So yeah, and it kind of set me off thinking about the usefulness or otherwise of self-reflection, really. And I guess what I mean is more structured self-reflection, because at the end of the day, I think self-awareness and self-reflection is hugely important, not least in the moment when you find yourself in a situation where perhaps you've got into conflict or disagreement or difficulty with someone. It's always other people. I think it's really important to be able to have enough awareness of what's actually going on in the moment, to be able to reflect on your own part in whatever it is that's unfolding, because that's the only thing that we have any kind of control over. So I guess what I'm talking about really is more the structured kind of, whether that's talking therapies, whatever that is. And I have done lots of talking therapy throughout my life. First time was when I lived away from home, moved away to university in my late teens, and like most people with ADHD, my life very quickly became really chaotic because there was no structure that was imposed on me. I had to kind of try and be the adult and find that structure myself, and I was just really struggled with that. It was virtually impossible, you know, and there was a lot of fallout for that for many years. And things got bad enough for me to want to reach out and find a professional that might be able to help me to understand what was going on. Now, putting aside the fact that, you know, I'd had so much interaction with doctors and the kind of healthcare system at this point, usually around being diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and medicated and all sorts of stuff like that. Putting aside the fact that no one picked up on the ADHD, the actual therapeutic process I found really helpful. I had a couple of false starts, like many people, with, you know, people that I didn't click with, therapists that kind of, it was really clear from the outset. My gut was telling me this, my spidey senses, which I know is now part of quite common with people with ADHD, were telling me this isn't a good fit. When I found that good fit, and I saw a therapist for several years in various different individual and group settings, I found that really helpful on many levels, not least because it kind of helped me to understand perhaps that as much as I was responding in a way that was kind of coloured by my own conditioning and my own script and what had happened to me in my life, that was also true for those around me, not least parents. So where I might have felt a lot of resentment and anger towards people for things I perceived they'd done to me or how they'd made my life more difficult, I started to see in a different light and understand that they too were a product of their kind of upbringing, life story, culture around them, etc. So it did improve my self-understanding, and it also crucially started to make some of my very close relationships a little bit easier. But I came to a point with this therapist, and then subsequently with another one some years later when I went back into therapy, where it was really clear that it wasn't going to really go any, we'd reached a point, put it that way, where to continue with this kind of level of self-introspection was going to be counterproductive, because what I really needed to focus on doing was just kind of trying to get on with living, get on with life. And since then, as I've got older, and also as a result of kind of a lot of reading around kind of spiritual books and teachings with lots of different teachers, but in particular Eckhart Tolle, who I've talked about before, I kind of reached a point where my main practice for kind of trying to keep this on the right track as far as possible is around trying to be in the moment. And that's what this whole kind of channel was really I set this up to kind of explore, is that balance between being in the moment, trying to understand and being aware of the fact that when you strip away all of that story, all of that stuff that we talk about, all of the things that come up in therapy, all of the life history and experiences and my story, the thing that makes me, that when most people talk about my life, that's what they're talking about. When you strip all that away, there is something far more fundamental, far more vital, that is timeless and that exists in that doesn't require this story in order to experience the world, and in order to experience the world in a fresh, fulfilling way. And that's that unconditioned consciousness that I talk about, and that I have experienced, and that I really work to connect with as much as possible in my life, which is why it's so lovely being in this space, because it's so quiet. And I guess that conversation with the psychologist was just an interesting kind of prompt, because there is still, I think, use in value in reflecting on one's own on your own response, how we respond to life and how we deal with life's challenges and just day-to-day living. And there is something of great value in understanding, okay, being able to differentiate, I guess, between, okay, what's a conditioned response, what's coming from the narrative of me, and what is a response from that deeper place. So I guess I am just thinking about that at the moment, and trying to find a balance, because I do have a tendency to kind of go, it goes with the obsession, kind of the obsessional kind of way that we can, as people with ADHD, we can grab onto a new idea and then everything else is out the window, and that's the thing that's going to give me the answer. That's now, yeah, if I can just hold on to that, then everything else, stuff that we thought before, irrelevant, it's gone. So I'm trying to be aware of that and realize that I can hold the two together, that my and understanding how to access that, my experience, and use it to not only connect with other people, because when we relate to something in someone else's experience, that's when it can start to feel like a safe space to open up. If we know that someone else has had a shared experience or a shared path in the world, or that kind of relatability is really important in creating a space where people can open up without fear of judgment, and where real compassion and empathy can kind of grow and flourish. So understanding that that's really important, but also understanding that ultimately the one thing that binds us all together that is completely relatable is the fact that we all share this unconditioned awareness, this pure awareness, that underneath all of the story, that's there. And it's kind of interesting in a way as well to reflect back on some of the stuff that I'll have discussed 1,000 times in therapeutic settings. But at a time in my life when I didn't have this level of awareness of my deeper self, and to see how that's kind of shifted my perception of those experiences and how that might have shifted now. So I guess what I'm trying, it's a bit of a, I don't know if this is a bit of a disclaimer video or if it's I don't know what it is, to be honest, but it was also prompted by a lovely comment by someone on one of my other videos where I was talking about rejection sensitivity dysphoria, that she said, oh, thanks for walking us through this, your experience, and it's so good to see you advocating for yourself and kind of taking up space in the world. And that was a really interesting comment and kind of like surprising for me, because I guess always at the forefront of my mind is not wanting this channel to become, to be yet another space where all I do is talk about stuff, conceptual ideas and things and history, my history, and there's a place for that, but there are plenty of people doing it. There's millions of people doing that. I don't need to create another channel of that, you know, analysing, over-analysing, far end of a far, going into absolutely, you know, all of that. That's really interesting content. It's really interesting, and that's why it's so addictive, and you can kind of very easily get sucked into that and always risk overlooking the vital importance of that kind of being in the moment and understanding that here and now, right now, this moment is perfect. I don't need to remember all the stuff about my past. I don't need to remember my story. I don't need to even remember my name, which is just a noise at the end of the day. I don't need to remember to worry about the stuff that I haven't done yet, or that I worry about next week and what might happen, or I don't need to do anything other than just be here in this moment and try and experience and enjoy the world as it is, exactly as it is now, without that filter, without the filter of all this stuff that's happened in my life, you know? Because that's the only place in reality where I find real, true fulfillment, joy, just joy at being alive, being in this body, being in this beautiful world, you know? And even when it's not good, because there are, and that's most of the time, to be honest with you, most of my life is fairly unencumbered by big dramas or anything like that. I've talked about that as well, and I really do. My life now is evidence of the fact that, you know, when you don't go looking for drama and you try and be open in your experience of new moments in your life, guess what? It gets a lot less complicated. There's not so much drama, you know? That's most of my life now. Obviously, there are moments where I am confronted with difficulty or challenge, usually in the form of other people. But that is also okay. That's also okay, because if I'm in the here and now, then I have half a chance of experiencing it as it is, as opposed to with all of this preconceived ideas behind it that always colour it and always completely skew it. It's never the true image. When you see it through your own filter, it's never the truth of what is happening in front of you, you know? So whatever it is, good, bad, or indifferent in this moment, trying to just respond to the isness of it. And I feel that energy as well. It's really, and I'm sure when I watch this video back, and maybe this is something for you to be aware of when you're watching this, my energy now, as I'm talking in this moment, is completely different, much more relaxed. When I am not thinking, not overthinking. I'm just, okay, this is, there's no, I'm not trying to remember anything. I'm not trying to predict anything. It's beautiful here. Just spotted a wood chime outside. And where it was at the beginning of the video, where it was a lot in here, and I'm really trying to analyze stuff and kind of, oh, how do I shape this video? How do I talk about it? So I am going to make another video in a few minutes. Excuse me, when I get to the end of this. I think I just whacked you. Sorry. Where I am going to get into a little bit of the history stuff. And it'll be interesting to see how that goes and if I'm able to speak from a place of kind of freshness on it rather than the kind of heavier energy, the heavier weight of remembering or just adding to the story. God, it is amazing. It's like being in it's almost like being in a river, and I can feel it where I get sucked into the rapids and rolled around and battered around and bumping off rocks and head going under, and then when I kind of drift into the calmer, deep waters where I'm just drifting downstream, and yes, there might be things that come along and, a meander in the river, there might be a slight change in direction, there might be a deeper pool where the flow is slower, or there might be parts where it goes a little bit quicker, but it's unencumbered. And that's what it feels like when I am in the moment, as I am now, being grounded by just sense perceptions, what's outside the window, what I feel in the space. That's what it feels like now, as opposed to what it feels like when I get too caught up in the head stuff. And then I'm back in the rapids again. And I guess the trick is trying to, even when I'm in those rapids, is trying to be aware of and see that just to my left here, or to the side, there is a patch of still water. Of smooth water, not still, because it still flows, it's got an energy, but smoother water where and I'm able to kind of slip back into that when I drop all of this narrative. So, yeah. Not getting caught up in unhelpful and at times damaging self-reflection, where it becomes not about self-reflection, but it becomes about the story of poor me. I guess that's the thing. Trying not to get caught up too much in that. The judgment of the story, that's the thing, the judgment of the story. Be great to hear from other people that have kind of been in those formal settings and what your experiences have been, and what really shifted the needle for you, because what really shifted the needle for me was really coming to that awareness that my story is my story, and that's one level, but the real vital truth of me is this unconditioned awareness. So I don't need to carry that story the whole time. I can pick it up when I need it and I can put it down when I don't need it, which is most of the time, to be honest. Yeah. We'd love to hear from some people. And thank you so much if you're watching, if you're sticking with the videos. I know that they are long. It's just the way it is. I'm going to have to stop fighting with myself to think that people need 2-minute things. Maybe I'll do some shorts. Maybe that's what I need to do, is do some shorts as well. But hey ho. I hope whatever you're up to today, you make some time for just being. Just ease up a little on the doing if you can, and find some time just to be. If you can be while you're doing, even better. Yeah. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And I hope to see you soon.